Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Social media definitely has an interest in personal finance. You open up YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and for better or worse, you are exposed to a handful of different viewpoints. And on the one hand, I think this is amazing because it's at least starting the conversation about money. And while it may be kind of taboo to talk a lot or in depth about money subjects in person, that's definitely not the case online. A lot of people are seeking out information about incomes and savings rates and investing habits and budgeting, you name it. And the fact that so much information is available is absolutely incredible. I think it's going a long way to helping improve financial literacy and helping people take control of their financial lives. And believe it or not, there's actually some hidden gems of financial guidance on these platforms. But because it is social media, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to filter it through your own lenses and see, does this ring true to me or does this actually apply to me? And if so, that's great. If not, just let that advice fall to the wayside. Remember, finance is personal. I wanted to go through some of the trending financial topics that have been showing up on TikTok, so I thought that would be kind of fun. By far, the biggest TikTok money trend has been cash stuffing. It's gotten over 700 million views. And if you haven't heard about cash stuffing, or if you're not familiar with how it works, it's a budgeting tactic where you take your paycheck, literally turn it into cash, and then you divvy this cash up into different categories. Think housing, transportation, vacations, things like that. And if by chance you aren't a young 20-something, you might be thinking, wait a minute, that's called cash stuffing? I thought that was called envelope budgeting. And wasn't that popular like 25 or 30 years ago? You would be absolutely correct. They're identical. It's just been rebranded as a new name. I remember my mom and I actually used to sit down and do the household budget with the envelope system when I was in maybe middle school, so it's kind of nostalgic to me. And honestly, I can't really find too much at fault with this trend. It increases your awareness on your spending as you allocate a certain amount to each category, and once you spend it, well, it's gone until the next pay period. It prevents you from going into debt as you're only spending money you actually have. So if you're doing that, it's pretty impossible to go into debt. And a lot of the users of it say that it reduces their stress around money because it gives each dollar a purpose. And I would agree with that because I think in general, budgets tend to reduce your stress around money. And not to mention the psychological component here, because studies have shown that for many people, when you use cash to spend as opposed to swiping a card, you actually spend less because it's harder to part with cash. It can make a purchase more real when you have to hand over those bills than when you swipe a card. However, there are some potential downsides to consider. A lack of protection. Cash doesn't offer any sort of protection, so if it's stolen, it's gone. So be careful of how much you're carrying on you at any given time. Also, it's potentially more time consuming to go get this cash and sort through it as opposed to, say, a digital budget. Or heaven forbid, you pull out a slower payment method going through a busy checkout lane in a grocery store. You're probably going to get some looks. You could also be missing out on an interest opportunity because right now interest rates are the highest they've been in a long time. So if you're keeping everything in cash, you might be missing out on some interest. However, so long as you're keeping your savings and your investments in the appropriate accounts and then you're just using the envelope system or the cash stuffing system for your daily expenses, any interest lost would honestly be negligible. So all in all, I think this one's a fine trend and I think it works quite well for people who have a propensity to overspend or people who feel particularly stressed about their finances. You can make the argument that going digital is more efficient, but this method absolutely works. So if you love it, go for it. Savings hacks. Some of the most popular are the 100 envelope challenge, where you take 100 envelopes, label them 1 through 100, shuffle them up, and then every single day you grab an envelope. And whatever one you grab, whatever amount is written on that envelope, you have to put that amount in the envelope earmarked for savings. Or the last digit savings hack. At the end of every day, you log into your checking account, look at the balance, and whatever the last digit is, you transfer that amount to your savings savings account. I think a money challenge is a fun way to kick your savings into gear. I've actually done a full video on different money challenges. So the 100 envelope challenge, I think it can be a fun little project, but you still want to make sure that you're building that long-term habit of saving and investing. And you're really going to do that by setting aside a set percentage of every single paycheck and making it automatic. And as far as the last digit hack, I feel like it could be fun short term, but my fear is that it could become tedious and hard to stick to long term. Next up is the money saving practice of stooping. If you haven't heard of stooping, you're not alone. I hadn't either until this article popped up, but lo and behold, we know what it is, and many of us have done it, myself included. Ever been driving down the road and you see a dresser sitting at the curb and you think to yourself, I could give that dresser a second life. I gotta get my hands on it before the trash man does. You take it home, you give it a spruce, boom, you got yourself a free piece of furniture, minus the cost of the spruce. I love this one, and like I said, I've done it a number of times. And why? Because furniture is crazy expensive. I found my kitchen table on the side of the road, picked it up, stripped it down, restained it, and boom, I have a lovely kitchen table, and anyone who comes over is reminded to use a coaster, because I worked on that table in the middle of a St. Louis summer, which is 90-degree heat and 90% humidity. I was dying. Blood, sweat, and tears went into making that table pretty, so we're gonna do what we can to keep it nice. I also have a guest bedroom dresser that I gave a second life to. It's how I got my treadmill. I also have a whole slew of other pieces of furniture that I got for dirt cheap on Facebook Marketplace. It's not the side of the road, but it's a similar concept. I think a lot of people get rid of pieces simply because they want to redecorate or a certain piece no longer fits their lifestyle. It doesn't mean this piece doesn't have a lot of life left in it. And think of it this way, you're saving money and the environment. Getting personal. Only with social media is this something you see.
Here's how I'm budgeting it for February. After expenses, it came out to $8,316. I'm going to save around 35% of this for taxes, which means I'll end up paying myself around $5,289. Every month I put $1,000 into my retirement savings, which comes out automatically. I'm going to put $700 onto my student loans. I'm giving myself $250 for my medical expenses, $400 for eating out and food because I am traveling right now, and so I am definitely spending more in that category. Giving myself $300 for groceries because I did go over budget on groceries last month. I'm putting $600 into my future car savings so I can buy a new car in a few years, and I have $315 left over, which will either end up going onto my student loans or into some sort of other savings account. We will see.
I have a couple good friends and we talk in depth about money like this. We talk about our incomes and our budgets, our savings, our investing, our major purchases, and it's really nice to have a sounding board. And I fully acknowledge that most people don't have friends they feel comfortable having these kinds of discussions with. And no judgment here. We all have different levels of what we feel comfortable talking about. But I feel like this is a really awesome thing that has come out of social media talking about finance. It's really knocking down the walls surrounding money. Because I feel like the people who are willing to do this are encouraging others to be more responsible with their money. They're encouraging them to budget, to have an emergency fund, to invest, to make responsible financial decisions. Social media has really changed the dialogue and normalized money conversations, breaking down the numbers on big purchases.
If you're buying a $450,000 home, you can still find loan programs that allow for as little as 3 to 3.5% down payments. That means for this house, you need to save about $13,500 to $16,000 to put down the very minimum. Then is your closing cost. We know that's about 2 to 3% of the loan amount. No closing costs can be up to 3% of that. That means you need to save an additional $13,000 for your closing costs. Lastly, we need to add the $400 to $600 on a home inspection. So all in for a $450,000 home, approximately you need to save about $29,600 to cover all your costs.
This is hugely important. It's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know. The first time you go to buy a home, if you've never done it before, odds are you have no idea the costs involved, the closing costs, the inspections, the appraisals, the list goes on. Sometimes it just feels like you're hemorrhaging money. You might have thought, I'm just supposed to have a down payment, and boy oh boy is that not the case. We bought our first home 2 years ago and it was a dreadful experience. I hated the bank we were forced to use, 0 out of 10, 100 100% do not recommend. I won't say their name. My banker was awful. We got into a heated discussion when his numbers just didn't add up. To make a long story short, we bought the home on June 1st. The banker wanted me to pay the taxes from January to May as well. We didn't own the home then. Why would we pay the taxes? He just kept telling me I didn't understand the process, and I'm like, I didn't own the home. Why would I owe the taxes? And we had to pay the taxes in order to close on the home. Well, 6 months after closing, we got an $8,000 check back, and words cannot describe how I felt when I got that check. I mean, at first I'm like, yay, I got $8,000 back. I can save that, I can invest it, I can put it to work. I'm glad I got it back. But I was so infuriated with this man who just kept telling me I didn't understand the process. But I'm letting it go slowly. I'm working on it, learning to rise above. It's the same with buying a car. If it's your first time buying a car, you might look at the price of the car and think, that's what I'm on the hook for. But maybe you overlook insurance or maintenance. And if you live in a city, maybe there's parking or all the other fees associated with having a car. So the more people are willing to talk about these extra expenses or what often seem to be hidden expenses, the more first-time buyers can be prepared, because in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. De-influencer. So you're probably familiar with the term influencer, someone who has a following online and markets products to that audience. But what about the term de-influencer? Well, a de-influencer will tell you when a product isn't worth your money. And sure, these people might act like influencers one day and then a de-influencer the next day. That's probably part of the whole process. When you're online, you want to make sure to keep your guard up, because 57% of people had made impulsive and unplanned purchases because of the content they saw on their social media feeds. But I feel like de-influencing is a trend I can really get behind. There is absolutely nothing wrong with talking about a product or a service that you genuinely love or you genuinely use. But I think that's the criteria. You actually have to use this or you have to love it. Like if Heinz Ketchup or Jiffy Peanut Butter want to sponsor me, I am open and available, guys. Please just let me know. But there's also a limit. Do you ever watch people online and you love their content, but it feels like every single day they're pushing a new product on you? Like, I love your content, but not these 1,200 other products you're talking about. Like, it has to stop. I'm really cautious how I spend my money, and I assume that the people who watch this channel are as well. But sometimes you see a new product or a service and you wonder, is it worth it? When there's a creator out there who tries a product that I was curious about and then they're like, oh, don't waste your money, totally not worth it. I love that because it saves me time, money, and effort. I love getting their opinion when it's a genuine opinion. If they want to tell me they love a product, that's great. But I also love when they tell me when they don't love a product. I do think a lot of social media content is trying to get us to open our wallets and spend money and move us further away from our financial goals. But some content can actually move you closer to your financial goals. It probably just depends on the content you're consuming. So a better focus might be to ensure that you're watching content that will move you closer to your goals. If you're watching people who are budgeting, you're probably going to budget. If you're watching people who are investing, you're probably going to be more inclined to invest. And always remember, it doesn't take any sort of credential to have a social media account or to call yourself a hashtag expert. So any information that you see, make sure you do your due diligence and see that it's true and that it actually applies to you. And always remember the mantra, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. What's the best money advice you've run across on any social media platform? Let me know in the comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.